If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedman.
Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is serial entrepreneur and brand marketing expert, Blaire Brown. Blaire is obsessed with helping entrepreneurs make their businesses shine. Featured in Forbes, ESPN Radio, and Yahoo Finance, Blaire founded Visionary Advantages Brand Lab to help brands elevate their presence online with her one-stop shop team of experts. Prior to starting her boutique branding and marketing agency, her career focused on operating entrepreneurial ventures and managing marketing and PR across major contemporary fashion brands in New York City. Blaire, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the show, and thank you for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
Well, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Blaire, I know you and I were talking before we went on the air, and we were talking about author branding and how important that is. Let's start there and tell us why it is so important for, especially our listeners who are primarily nonfiction authors. Why is it so important for them to establish an author brand?
Sure. Well, I think whenever I've worked with authors before, a common thought is that, okay, I'm going to get this book out and into the public, and then it's just going to fly off the shelves or off Amazon's digital shelf like hotcakes. And well, the fact is that's not exactly what happens. In order for that to happen, you need to get your marketing going, tell people about you, your book, spread the word, because it takes a little bit of work. You got to get that going, build up the momentum, and build that following right out the gate. To establish yourself as an author and as a book brand, it's very important to put those initiatives into action in order to get that book sold.
Where does one start? There's always a beginning because authors, for the most part, really often don't know where to start with this. The whole idea of marketing, selling their book, promoting, and then this idea of building a brand often is foreign territory to them. Where would they start?
That's a good question. I always look at being an author as being a business. We're trying to sell something. We're trying to get the word out there. The starting point for sure, I think, would be to build out your brand, like create a logo for yourself as an author, and then to establish yourself on social media and have a website. We want to give people a central hub to find you. So if you're out and networking at an event or you see friends, how can they easily access you and see what you're about? And if you're planning on having more than one book, really fine tuning like who that audience is that you're talking to and how you can reach them. So I would start first with a logo, like an author logo. We could even plan on having that on a book series if you're going to be expanding. Just an emblem that's recognizable and builds out that brand awareness. From there, then you can build social media posts on a platform. It's free to get that going if you wanted to just log in to create an Instagram account or Facebook. You can easily upload your logo on there and start making social media posts. You can use a tool like canva.com to make graphics, even if you're not necessarily a graphic designer, because not all of us are, right? Those are two simple ways: logo, social media. And then I would highly recommend having a website just so people can easily find you. They can buy their book. You can link your book in all the different areas that it's available. Let's say it's available on Amazon or Target or Barnes and Noble, for example. You can have those links all on your website so people can choose where they purchase.
What's going through my mind as you were saying that is the logo. And you stressed having a logo. Talk to us more about that. Yes, it could be a symbol, it could be something that's recognizable. What are some of the things that we should think about with creating a logo or having somebody help us create that?
Sure. I honestly would do a little bit of research about your industry. So if you're writing a nonfiction book, what type of nonfiction is it? Is it about you and your life? Is it about history? Like, where does that land? And then I would try to take elements of your genre that you're writing for and see what is that audience gravitating towards? What are they connecting to? Once you figure that out, and then think about, what do you like as an author? This is you, this is your brand. And this is something that you might be expanding on down the line. This might not just be one book. So in that case, think about the future industry, who you are, and then go from there. Over time, you're going to want, if you're building out social media posts and a website, you'll also want to take into consideration the colors that are going into this and so on. And all those building blocks should help you figure out what kind of logo you want and what direction.
Colors. That's an interesting one. Let's delve a little deeper into colors, the importance of colors. Talk to
Sure.
us a little bit more about that.
If you are talking about sustainability, for example, obvious color for that would be earth tones, greens, browns, things like that. If you're doing like a health and wellness path, like maybe light pastels, soft colors. There's a lot of psychology behind colors, and whenever you're developing it, you want to think about that, the industry and so on.
Yeah, colors are always one of those things that the things that you like, but that may not be appropriate. There's
Right.
such thing as power colors. What are some of
Yeah.
power colors, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, power colors, like it could be a psychological thing. Maybe you want to use green for money or some bold colors like blue or the primary colors, yellow, red. It really just depends on what direction your brand is going in. And again, I think every author should view themselves as a brand and a business because frankly, we got to make some book sales, right?
That's for sure. And then I remember writing about this in my Riches and Niches book, How to Make It Big in a Small Market, to create a name for your business that says what you do versus sometimes using your own name. I've got a name that's difficult to spell. Friedman, nobody can spell that correctly the first time around. And sometimes it's hard to pronounce because it's written the German way. And I get people call me Friedman and yes, all sorts of
Uh-huh.
things. It's much easier to use Author Marketing Mentor versus relying on my name. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree. It's really just a preference thing, right? Like my brand originally was my name because that's how I was focusing on the consulting piece of my marketing brand. But now, as we've evolved, we're now a Visionary Advantages Brand Lab because it's not just me now. I have a team of people that are helping me to execute these projects, right? And bring brands to life. I think it really just depends on exactly what you said. If they feel more comfortable using their name, if it's more memorable, easy to spell, or if they want to lean on a business name for it. Susan's children's books or something, just for an example. The beauty of it is that since it's your brand, you can be creative and you can do anything that you want. But as long as you just are strategic about your intentions behind it and think about your audience too, you should come meet in the middle and you'll find the perfect name.
Yes. And it's not the first time around because I tried to be very clever when I first started my business. I used Diadem Communications. Nobody knew what that meant. They thought I was a wireless company. And it took a few years, and then I decided to change my name when I was working in the trade show industry, and I became the trade show coach. And that was so much easier to remember. And it also said what I did at the
Mhm.
time. Yeah, as you said, your preference. And I know many people use their own name. Again, it just depends. I know. I
Yeah.
don't think there's any hard and fast rule. Is
I
that
don't
what
think
you're
so
saying?
either. There's no right or wrong, but as long as you're not talking about like electrical engineering or us, and then you're writing books about botanicals, like make sure it makes sense for what you're doing.
Absolutely. What advice would you have for first-time authors, let's say with a limited resources for marketing their book? Where would you advise them to put their resources?
I think where I'd put my resources is honestly just create a simple brand presence. You don't have to spend millions of dollars, right? You're just starting out. Just focus on creating a simple presence, whether it's putting together that logo and a color scheme. You can even go to this website called Coolors, Coolors.com, and it's free. It's really fun because all you have to do is hit the space bar on your laptop to flip through different color palettes. Doing something like that in your free time, like finding some colors that you like, and then creating social media posts to promote your book are some very simple solutions that you can do just to get it started. I mean, it's free to just set up a social media account and then to just build up something that's consistent and resonates with your audience is going to pay off a lot in the long run. Because then whenever they're being interviewed on podcasts, right, or just talking to friends, they can easily direct people to that platform. And that could be a way that they share announcements to and build up an audience. So I think that that's where I would start, because you got to start talking about your book.
Again, if you're going into speaking, training, or coaching, what would you recommend there? The branding approach for authors who wanted to, let's say, expand beyond the book, and the book is a big fat business card that says, hey,
Right.
I'm an expert in this area and I can speak or do training, coaching, consulting. What would the recommendation there be with regard to the branding?
I would establish yourself as a speaker and really just make that a priority. I think use the same method by getting a logo and a color scheme that is going to essentially become recognizable over time to your audience. Building up that consistency will just make the light bulb go off in your audience's brain whenever they see your content pop through on social media and so on. That's something really important. But get in front of people and start talking. There are many podcast resources where you can go and people are going to be looking for your expertise to talk on their show. Pitch yourself to those platforms of podcast shows. Find your favorites, write to them, reach out. There's podmatch.com, or I think it's a .com. Podmatch is a great way to connect with different podcast hosts because the more you build up that reel, essentially, and examples of you speaking, the more likely you're going to be invited again to different speaking engagements. And so if you can build that out, that foundation of trust, and then you showcase it on a website when the time is right, it'll be much easier to get bigger productions.
How about mistakes? There must be a ton of mistakes that people are making when it comes to branding. What are some of the most common ones that you would like to share with our listeners?
Easily the most common mistake would be somebody wants their brand to be everything to everyone. And you being the niche queen over there, I'm sure you could agree that you got to niche it down, right? Like people aren't going to connect with every single piece of content that you're creating. So you want to focus on the people that do connect because that's what's really going to move the dial, so to speak. So definitely focus on who your audience is. Don't try to be everything for everyone. And that's going to make a bigger impact.
Yeah, that's something that unfortunately is tough, when people think, oh, their book is for everyone. And yes,
No.
it might be. And listeners have heard me say this a million times. It's like, but you can't market to everyone. You've got to pick your path and go down that path. And you're right. Yes. I call it niche marketing. Yeah. But it's finding that group of people who are most interested in what you have to say and what problem you can help them solve. What does your book do that helps them solve that challenge?
Yeah. And I think at first it's painful as a business owner and author, right? Like you want everybody to see all of this awesome work that you've done. But at the end of the day, whenever you're talking to 10 different customer avatars, right? Then that just is going to be confusing to them. Like, what are they actually saying? What are they trying to accomplish? I don't understand it. Once you establish that confusion with somebody, it's going to be an immediate no. They're not going to want to follow, or they aren't going to want to explore more about the book that you've written. So just focusing on who it actually is geared for is going to be more impactful.
Now, as you're saying all this, and you gave us a great mistake to avoid, how about a misconception, a common misconception about author branding that you'd like to debunk?
Okay. Well, I think one is everybody thinks that the second they publish the book, that they're just going to become famous and it's just going to fly off the shelves. Not really it. I mean, yeah, that'd be awesome, but you got to put some work into marketing. I think people also think that if they start marketing on social media immediately, that they're going to get this huge following because their posts look so great. And trust me, I'm a believer in social media. I've already brought it up several times on today, but you'd still have to engage with the audience. If they're commenting, you need to respond, and you need to be inviting people to follow your page. And you just have to build up that consistency so that way people do see a cadence in what you're posting and get involved. So I think people need to know, if you are going to be using social media as your main platform to market yourself, to make sure that you're keeping it up and consistent, and it's not just you post for a month, you leave it, and then that's going to do the job for you. It's an ongoing effort.
Yes, and you've mentioned the word consistency a few times and the power of being consistent. Whether it's getting responses or not, the fact is you're out there, you're in front of the public eye, and people have to be reminded constantly. Often, somebody says, "Oh, well, I tried that and it didn't work."
Right.
And then they leave it. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, keep trying. It may not work today, but it may work tomorrow or the day after, or even
Yeah.
the week or month or year after.
Exactly. You just got to be consistent. That's the name of the game.
And stay top of mind for people.
Mhm.
And again, I think that's where your branding comes into play. Help me with that, is that recognition that, hey, oh, yes, I recognize that brand.
Exactly. If you're seeing a Target ad on TV or something, or McDonald's, you recognize the golden arches, you recognize the color and the type of imagery that they're using. With Target, you notice that red, and then they use that dog, and there's other imagery involved in that too. But as soon as I said those two brands, you probably saw it visually in your head. They didn't get that overnight, and neither will you. It's just, you have to build it up. So whenever people are scrolling through social media, or if you're doing an email campaign, right, they are recognizing the way you're talking, the colors that you're using, the logo that you put on each social post, all of those things. While it's just going to just build up over time, and it will start to resonate, and people will start having that recognition as you're consistently posting or reaching out to them. Like you said, it might not be immediate, but over time it does count, because it could happen. Tomorrow could be the day that it lands in front of the right person in your audience and they happen to need you right then and there, or want to use your book as a resource for maybe an event they're hosting, or maybe they're looking for a speaker in that area right now. And then boom, you land in front of them. It's the right place, the right time.
Yes, that consistency, staying with that messaging, that same messaging. And then, as you rightly say, the colors, that those are your colors that you are using consistently. How about if an author is wanting to promote themselves as an expert in an area and they're wanting to promote the book? Balancing those two, what would your recommendation be with that scenario?
I would say just focus on the value you're bringing to the table. Like, how are you helping the audience right then and there? Why should they be listening to you? Make sure it's not a sales pitch. People will tune out immediately. Just focus on giving free advice. And then if they want to learn more, then they'll inquire and they'll want to buy your book. Giving away some tips here and there, I'm sure, is not the entire book that you've written. So I hope not. Just focus on the value you bring to the table and making it exciting, something they want to learn more about, and then the sales will follow because of that. Just be sincere about it, authentic, and leave the sales pitch at the door. And then just at the end, I would say you could mention, hey, if you want to learn more, check out my book. It's called A, B, and C, whatever it's called, and then leave it at that. People like that.
They do. And you said something interesting too, and that is be willing to give stuff away for free.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had pushback from authors who say, no, I don't want to give that away because if I give that away, they're not going to buy the book. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, don't give everything away, right? But I would hope if you've written a book, there's a lot more to it, right? That people would want to inquire more. If you give a bird's eye view, however, of the concepts, you can ask some intriguing questions that might get people thinking a little bit deeper about what you have to say and the value you do bring to the table. I think the key is that you want people thinking, wow, if they're giving me this much information now, I can't imagine how much information that's full of value is going to be in their book. That's what we want to leave the takeaway is like, wow, I'm impressed. Let's dive in more. I think
that psychological approach. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating. I mean, marketing is a very inexact science, but yet the consistency needs to be there.
Yeah. I give free information all the time. And people are like, wait, but you're giving away. I'm like, no, but it's helpful, right? And then if they need more help because I've got a team of experts, then that's when you dive in. But otherwise, I think we should all, help each other out as business owners and get them to that next step.
How about a tactic that could be overlooked that authors could use to make a lasting impression? What's something that might be easy and yet we don't think of it?
Sure. I mean, I've mentioned websites a couple of times, and I think that part of that, an effort that you could do if you have a website or you plan on having one at some point, is thinking about SEO strategies. SEO stands for search engine optimization. And essentially, what it does is your goal is to have your website become best friends with Google. A common misconception is that people think, okay, I have this website. Everybody's going to go to my website, and that naturally traffic is just going to flow there. But the truth is you have to take a few extra steps to get your page ranked on page 1 of Google. And something that's a slow game, it's definitely not overnight. But if you start slowly writing, let's say a blog post a month, and if you're a writer, hopefully that's not too hard. You can always repurpose your content, but do a little keyword research for SEO. There's tools out there that you can use to get the research. Look at the keywords, see, okay, what are people searching for that would make sense for me to pull up? Select those like strategic amount of keywords and then just implement those in your blogging strategy. So if you have those in your blogs over time, Google will start to notice, hey, there's new content on this website all the time. People happen to be searching for this. I should send people there when they search for it. That's essentially what it tells Google. As a writer, I think that's just a long-term strategy that I think would help you is just look into SEO keywords, how you can execute that through writing one blog post a month. You can even use those keywords in your social media captions to double down. And then boom, over time, you'll start to see more traffic go to your website. So I think that's a easy thing you could start adding to your marketing plan.
And I think that just knowing the keywords that people are searching, and again, there are different websites that allow you to find out what people are searching on. And as I mentioned to you before the show, is that, people don't look up author marketing, but they do look up book marketing.
Right. It's so
there
funny.
Is that
one word
distinction.
to change that. Yeah. But that's why it's so important to just look into it and not just don't write a blog post just to write one, because that's not really going to do a lot for you. The key is that you need to have a strategic SEO plan. Like if you are consistently writing about one genre or theme that's related to your book and what you want to speak about in front of audiences, that's going to give you way bigger advantage than just writing a blog post to write one. So put some thought into it.
Very much so. This is a great segue for you to tell our listeners how they can find out more about you and the services that you offer.
Sure. I own Visionary Advantages Brand Lab, and just go to visionaryadvantages.com. You can message us on there. You can see all the different ways that we can help you do marketing and branding. We're essentially a one-stop shop, and we do everything from logos, websites, SEO, and social media. And our goal is just to champion other entrepreneurs. We're a team of entrepreneurs over here, and we're excited to help bring brands to life. And so that's what we're here, cheering you guys on.
And I believe you've got lots of free resources on your website, isn't that true?
I do. There's a whole page for entrepreneur resources, and you can go there and download them. And there's a podcast too with a lot of free business advice from experts across every industry.
Fabulous. And as you know, Blaire, our guests always leave our listeners with a golden nugget. What's your golden nugget?
Today, we kept bringing it up, and I was thinking, what's my golden nugget for the day? And I think today the key is consistency. If you're just brand new at starting your marketing efforts, focus on getting that branding locked in, create that logo, that color palette that you love, and then pick a platform that you want to start being consistent on. If you just get that started today, it's going to pay off a lot in the long run, because then you'll be able to look back and see, okay, I started posting and it's starting to reach people organically. And I think that's going to be the name of the game for you and your business at this time, is just think about the consistency of your branding and the way that you're marketing. Hopefully that helps.
Oh, it certainly does. Consistency is so consistent to be consistent. Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, wrap your head around that one. In any event, Blaire, this has been an absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our listeners. By the way, listeners, if your book isn't selling the way you wanted or expected to, let's you and I jump on a quick call together to brainstorm ways to ramp up those sales, because you've invested a whole lot of time, money, and energy, and it's time you got the return that you were hoping for. So go to bookmarketingbrainstorm.com to schedule your free call. And in the meantime, I hope this powerful interview sparks some ideas you can use to sell more books. So until next week, here's wishing you much book and author marketing success.